A fresh round of senior-focused arrivals just landed at Dollar Tree, and based on how quickly recent restocks have moved, several of these won't last more than a couple of weeks on the shelf. Store staff flagged 11 specific items already selling briskly, plus 5 others that made it into stores this cycle, but are genuinely worth skipping, according to early complaints and returns. We're covering all 16 today, starting with the 11 worth grabbing before they're gone, then closing with the 5 worth avoiding entirely. For each one, you'll get what it does, why it's moving, and what it typically costs elsewhere. None of these 11 are marked with a special sign or a clearance sticker, sitting on completely ordinary shelves at the regular price, which is exactly why it's worth checking specifically, rather than assuming you'd have noticed them already. Let's start with the 11 worth grabbing. Number 1, Extra Large Print Daily Journal. A simple line journal with oversized print guides and wide spacing, sized for daily notes, gratitude entries, or a basic diary. Comparable large print journals through specialty stationery shops run $8 to $12. The wide-ruled lines and bold guide margins make writing legibly easy without needing to squint at the page afterward. And the spacing between lines feels noticeably more generous than a typical dollar store notebook. Bottom line, a genuinely comfortable to use daily journal for $1.25 beats a specialty large print version costing several times as much. And it's a small habit-building tool that's easy to start without much investment. A few shoppers mentioned buying 2, one for daily notes and a second dedicated specifically to a gratitude or reflection practice, keeping the 2 separate rather than mixing everyday tasks with more personal reflections. Staff mentioned journals and stationery items in general have seen steady demand this year, particularly among shoppers looking for a simple, low-cost way to build a daily writing habit. For anyone who's put off journaling because standard-lined paper feels cramped, this small format change can be the difference between sticking with the habit and abandoning it after a few days, since the physical act of writing itself becomes more comfortable rather than a source of strain. A few shoppers mentioned buying a second copy specifically as a gift for a friend who'd mentioned struggling with standard-sized journal lines, describing it as a thoughtful, low-cost way to show they'd actually been listening. The cover itself feels sturdier than expected, holding up well to being tossed in a bag or carried around throughout the day without the corners bending or the pages loosening. Beyond just journaling, a few shoppers mentioned using it for tracking daily symptoms or moods as part of a broader wellness routine. For anyone easing back into a writing habit after years away from it, the low pressure of a $1.25 journal makes it easier to simply start without overthinking the commitment. A shopper who works as a caregiver mentioned buying several copies at once to give to clients as an easy, low-pressure way to start journaling. Number 2. Foam Grip Garden Kneeler Pad, a dense foam pad that cushions knees during light gardening or floor-level tasks. Similar kneeler pads through garden retailers run $10 to $15. The dense foam held its shape through repeated outdoor use without flattening out after just a few sessions, holding up noticeably better than a thinner foam pad might at this price. Bottom line, a real cushioning upgrade for anyone doing light gardening or floor-level tasks at this price beats a specialty kneeler pad costing several times more. A few gardeners mention this making a noticeable difference for tasks like weeding or planting that require kneeling for extended periods, especially compared to kneeling directly on bare ground or a hard patio surface where the discomfort tends to build up faster than most people expect. Staff noted seasonal gardening items like this tend to move quickly through early fall as people finish up yard work before winter weather sets in. Even for a short gardening session, having real cushioning underfoot makes the difference between a pleasant hour outside and one cut short by discomfort, extending how long a task like weeding or planting can comfortably continue. A few shoppers mentioned keeping one in a car trunk for spontaneous stops at a community garden plot or a family member's yard. The foam is thick enough to genuinely cushion against hard concrete or packed dirt, not just soft grass, which matters for anyone gardening on a patio or a paved walkway edge. A carrying handle sewn into one edge makes it easy to bring along to a community garden plot or move between different areas of a yard. For anyone managing knee discomfort generally, this small purchase can make the difference between avoiding yard work altogether and being able to enjoy it again. One shopper mentioned bringing hers along on a weekly volunteer shift at a local community garden, where it's become a small but appreciated addition. Number 3. Wide Handle Vegetable Peeler. An oversized cushioned handle that reduces strain during meal prep. Comparable adaptive peelers run $6 to $9. The oversized handle distributes pressure across the whole hand rather than concentrating it in 2 fingers, making meal prep noticeably less tiring, especially during a longer session peeling a full batch of potatoes or carrots. Bottom line, a comfortable, easy grip kitchen tool at this price removes a small daily kitchen frustration for a fraction of what a specialty version would cost. A few home cooks mention this, replacing a standard peeler that had become uncomfortable to use for longer prep sessions, particularly during holiday cooking when larger batches of vegetables need prepping at once. Staff noted kitchen adaptive tools tend to be some of the most consistently repurchased items across the store, replaced every so often as older tools wear out. Something as routine as prepping vegetables for dinner becomes noticeably less tiring with a tool that doesn't require a tight, sustained grip, which can be the difference between cooking a full meal from scratch or reaching for something pre-made instead. A few home cooks mentioned this being the first adaptive kitchen tool they'd tried, and the comfort difference convinced them to look for similar upgrades elsewhere in the kitchen. The blade stayed sharp through weeks of regular use without needing to be replaced or sharpened, handling everything from soft tomatoes to firmer root vegetables without much extra effort. It's dishwasher safe, saving a step compared to hand washing a more delicate adaptive tool. For anyone who cooks regularly, small kitchen upgrades like this one add up over time to make the whole process noticeably more pleasant. One home cook mentioned this being the tool that finally got her back into making homemade soups regularly after avoiding the prep work for months. Number 4. Large print TV remote label overlay stickers. Bold, high contrast stickers that fit over existing remote buttons to make them easier to read. Similar overlay kits through accessibility catalogs run $7 to $11. The stickers apply easily to most standard remote button layouts without covering the infrared sensor or affecting function, and they can be repositioned once or twice if the first placement isn't quite right. Bottom line, a simple, low-cost fix for a cluttered remote at this price beats replacing the whole remote just to get readable buttons. A few shoppers mentioned this, solving a frustration they'd lived with for years without realizing such a simple fix existed, wishing they'd discovered it long before this particular restock. Staff mentioned this being a surprisingly popular small fix, since it solves a daily frustration without the cost or hassle of replacing an entire remote. For anyone who's quietly been guessing at buttons rather than reading them clearly, this small fix restores a level of confidence using a remote that's easy to take for granted, especially during a favorite show or a live event where fumbling with the wrong button is genuinely frustrating. A few shoppers mentioned applying these to multiple remotes around the house, not just the main television. The adhesive stays securely in place without peeling up at the edges after repeated handling, even with a remote that gets picked up and set down dozens of times a day. The kit includes enough stickers for 2 full remotes, useful for households with more than one television. For a household with more than one person using the same remote, everyone benefits from buttons that are simply easier to read at a glance. One shopper described applying these as a small surprise fix during a visit to a parent's house, without making a big deal of it beforehand. Number 5. Cushioned compression glove, single pair. A snug, supportive glove that some find comforting for stiff or achy hands, particularly in the morning. Comparable compression gloves run $12 to $18. The fabric stretches to fit a range of hand sizes without feeling overly tight or restrictive during regular daily wear, and it stayed comfortable through several hours of continuous wear and testing. Bottom line, a comforting, supportive glove at this price is a fraction of what a specialty compression glove costs elsewhere, making it an easy, low-risk try for anyone dealing with morning stiffness. A few shoppers mentioned wearing theirs specifically overnight for added comfort by morning. Staff noted comfort items like this tend to see increased interest heading into colder months, when joint stiffness often becomes more noticeable. For anyone dealing with morning stiffness, a small comfort routine like this can make the first hour of the day noticeably more manageable, easing the transition from waking up to getting through a full morning routine. A few shoppers mentioned buying 2 pairs, one to wear and one to keep as a backup for washing rotation. The seams are flat and smooth, avoiding the irritation that some cheaper compression gloves can cause with rougher stitching, which matters most for anyone wearing them for extended stretches through the day. It's machine washable on a gentle cycle, making it easy to keep clean with regular daily wear. For anyone who's tried a more expensive version before, this is worth testing at a fraction of the price to see if it provides similar comfort. One shopper mentioned this becoming part of a morning routine, put on before breakfast and taken off once the stiffness eased. Number 6. Non-slip bathtub step stool. A textured, wide step that helps with safely getting into a tub with a high side. Similar bath step stools run $15 to $20. The textured surface stayed grippy even when wet in testing, and the wider step gives more stable footing than a narrow ledge, holding steady even when weight shifted unevenly during a test step. Bottom line, a meaningful safety upgrade for getting into a tub at this price is hard to beat compared to a specialty bath step costing several times more. A few shoppers mentioned this, solving a hesitation they'd noticed building up over time before stepping into the tub. Staff mentioned bathroom safety items in general have seen steady demand growth this year compared to previous restocks. A more confident, stable entry into a tub removes one of the more common moments of hesitation in a daily bathing routine, turning what might have become a source of quiet anxiety back into a simple, ordinary task. A few shoppers mentioned this being useful beyond the bathtub, doubling as a stable step near a bed or a raised threshold elsewhere in the house. The rubber feet on the bottom grip a tub floor securely without sliding, even when both the stool and the tub are wet, holding steady through repeated testing with soap and water on the surface. It folds relatively flat for storage when not in use, useful for a smaller bathroom without much extra space. For anyone who's had a close call stepping into a tub before, this small purchase directly addresses that specific moment of risk. One shopper described this restoring a level of confidence during bathing that had quietly eroded over the past year or so. Number 7. Large print Sudoku puzzle book. Bigger grid squares and numbers than a standard puzzle book. Comparable large print Sudoku books run $6 to $9. The bigger grid squares and bold numbers make solving puzzles noticeably more comfortable without needing to search for reading glasses first, making it easier to enjoy a puzzle in a dimly lit room as well. Bottom line, hours of genuinely comfortable puzzle solving for $1.25 is hard to beat compared to specialty large print puzzle books costing several times more. Several shoppers mentioned buying multiple copies at once to always have a fresh one on hand. Staff noted puzzle books in general have become a steady category this year, restocking regularly rather than just seasonally. For anyone who enjoys a numbers-based puzzle specifically, removing the eye strain that comes with tiny grids makes the hobby genuinely more relaxing. A few shoppers mentioned pairing this with the crossword book from a previous list for variety in daily puzzle solving. The paper stock is thick enough that pen or marker doesn't bleed through to the puzzle on the next page, keeping every grid clean and usable throughout the entire book. Each puzzle includes a difficulty rating, useful for anyone wanting to start easy and work up to harder grids over time. For anyone looking for a low-cost, engaging way to spend a quiet afternoon, this book offers hours of entertainment for very little investment, easily filling a rainy day or a long wait at an appointment. One shopper mentioned this becoming a shared activity with a spouse, working through puzzles together most evenings. Number 8. Talking kitchen timer. A basic countdown timer with a spoken alert alongside the display and beep. Similar talking timers run $10 to $14. The spoken alert confirms the countdown is running, useful for anyone working in another room and unable to see the display, and the volume carries clearly enough to be heard over typical kitchen background noise. Bottom line, a reliable dual alert timer at this price beats a specialty talking timer, costing several times more. A few shoppers mentioned this being especially useful for anyone managing multiple things cooking at once, running 2 or 3 countdowns in parallel without losing track of which one is which. A few shoppers mentioned pairing it with a written note on the fridge, just as a backup, though most said they stopped needing that extra step within the first week of regular use. Staff mentioned this being a popular pick for anyone who spends a lot of time in the kitchen, managing multiple dishes at once. A confirmed, spoken countdown removes the need to keep glancing back at a timer, freeing up attention for whatever else is happening in the kitchen. A few shoppers mentioned using it for tasks beyond cooking, like timing a rest period or a phone call. The volume can be adjusted, which matters for anyone who prefers a quieter alert rather than a loud one, giving some flexibility depending on the time of day or who else is in the house. It can run multiple countdowns at once, useful for anyone juggling more than one dish cooking at the same time. For anyone who's ever burned a dish because a timer went unheard from another room, the spoken alert alone justifies the purchase, removing that small but recurring source of kitchen frustration for good. One shopper described this eliminating a recurring source of minor kitchen stress that had built up over years of half-heard timers. Number 9. Wide grip hairbrush. An oversized handle that's easier to control for anyone with reduced hand strength or limited shoulder mobility. Comparable adaptive hairbrushes run $7 to $10. The larger handle gives more control and requires less wrist rotation during regular brushing, which matters for anyone with limited shoulder mobility, since less repositioning is needed to reach the back of the head comfortably. Bottom line, a comfortable, easier-to-control brush at this price removes a small daily frustration for a fraction of what a specialty version would cost. A few shoppers mentioned this, making a noticeable difference for a task they'd started needing help with. Staff noted personal care adaptive tools like this one tend to be under the radar, finds that customers are grateful to discover once they spot them. A small daily task like brushing hair becomes noticeably less effortful with a tool that doesn't require repeated tight gripping. A few shoppers mention this being a thoughtful, practical gift for a parent managing reduced hand strength. The bristles are spaced well enough to detangle without pulling, reducing discomfort during regular use, working smoothly through both fine and thicker hair textures in testing. The bristle tips are rounded, reducing scratching on the scalp during regular brushing. For anyone managing a change in shoulder mobility, small daily tasks like this one benefit the most from a thoughtfully designed tool, restoring a sense of independence around something as ordinary as personal grooming. One shopper mentioned this being a small but meaningful gift for a parent recovering from a recent shoulder injury. Number 10. Extra cushion slipper socks with grip soles. Fleece-lined socks with textured grip on the bottom for safer indoor walking. Similar grip slipper socks run $8 to $12. The fleece lining stays warm through regular wear, and the grip soles prevent slipping on hardwood or tile flooring, holding up well through repeated daily wear without the fleece matting down. Bottom line, a comfortable, safer alternative to bare socks or loose slippers at this price is hard to beat, combining the warmth of a slipper with far better traction underfoot. A few shoppers mentioned buying multiple pairs to keep a fresh pair always in rotation, avoiding the gap of going without while a worn pair is in the wash. Staff mentioned cooler weather tends to drive increased demand for indoor comfort items, like this one heading into fall. Safer, warmer feet at home is one of those small comforts that's easy to underestimate until it's actually missing during a cold morning. A few shoppers mentioned buying several pairs at once, specifically to always have a clean pair in rotation. The grip pattern covers the full sole rather than just the heel, adding traction across the whole foot, which matters most when turning or pivoting rather than just walking in a straight line. They're machine washable without losing their grip texture, unlike some cheaper versions that wear smooth after a few washes. For anyone who's slipped on a smooth floor in regular socks before, the added traction here directly addresses that risk, turning an ordinary walk across the kitchen into something far less worrying. One shopper described switching entirely away from slippers once she tried these, preferring the closer, more secure fit. Number 11. Large print address and phone number book. Oversized print columns for names, numbers, and addresses, sized for a nightstand or kitchen drawer. Comparable large print address books run $7 to $11. The oversized print columns make it easy to jot down and later find a contact's information without squinting at tiny text, with enough space per entry to include a note or two alongside the basic details. Bottom line, a genuinely usable, readable address book at this price beats a specialty large print version costing several times more. A few shoppers mentioned transferring years of contacts into this new book, specifically because their old one had become hard to read, treating the process itself as a small, satisfying afternoon project. Staff noted this being a popular pick for anyone who prefers keeping a physical record of contacts rather than relying entirely on a phone. Having a reliable, readable backup for important contacts matters especially for anyone less comfortable relying entirely on a phone's contact list. A few shoppers mentioned keeping a second copy at a vacation home or with a family member as a backup. The spiral binding lies flat when open, making it easy to write in without the pages snapping shut, a small detail that makes a real difference during actual use, rather than just sitting on a shelf. It includes a separate section for important dates like birthdays, useful for keeping everything in one place. For anyone who prefers writing information down rather than typing it, this book offers a genuinely comfortable way to do exactly that, keeping important contacts organized and accessible without needing to navigate a phone's settings or apps. One shopper mentioned this becoming a small family project, sitting down together to transfer contacts from an old, worn book into the new one. Now the 5 new arrivals worth avoiding this cycle, according to staff fielding early complaints. Avoid number 1. Bargain reading light clip, battery type. Several reports of the clip mechanism loosening within days, causing the light to slip off a book or a headboard. Staff say the clip issue seems batch-specific, with several customers reporting the same failure within the first week of use, suggesting a possible manufacturing defect, rather than normal wear affecting this particular shipment. A slightly pricier clip light with a sturdier mechanism elsewhere is worth the difference for something meant to stay attached overnight. Avoid number 2. Cheap foam bath pillow. The foam flattened noticeably within the first couple of weeks of regular use, losing most of its cushioning support. For anyone relying on this for real neck or back support during a bath, losing cushioning within weeks defeats the purpose entirely, and several customers specifically mentioned noticing the difference within just the first 10 to 14 days of regular use. A denser foam version elsewhere holds its shape far longer, even at a slightly higher price. Avoid number 3. Plastic pill crusher, single piece. Several reports of the crushing mechanism cracking under normal use, well before it should have worn out. Staff specifically flagged this as concerning given how directly it ties to medication management, where a cracked or failing tool isn't just inconvenient, it can mean an incomplete or uneven dose if a crushed pill doesn't fully break down. A metal or sturdier plastic crusher elsewhere is worth the extra cost for something used daily with medication. Avoid number 4. Bulk adhesive bandages, off-brand. The adhesive failed to stay on through normal daily movement, coming loose within hours rather than staying put for a full day. A bandage that doesn't stay on defeats its entire purpose, especially for anyone managing a wound that needs consistent coverage. And several customers mentioned needing to reapply multiple times throughout a single day just to keep a bandage in place. A name brand version, even at a higher price, tends to hold significantly better through normal daily movement. Avoid number 5. Cheap electric look flameless candle, single unit. The flicker effect looked noticeably choppier and less convincing than similar sets, with a dimmer bulb than expected. For anyone specifically wanting a convincing flicker effect for ambiance, or as an outage backup, a version with a more realistic flame movement is worth the small price difference, since the whole point of a flameless candle is replicating that warm, flickering look convincingly. 11 items worth grabbing before they're gone, and 5 worth skipping regardless of how tempting the price looks. None of the 11 require special timing beyond getting to a store soon, and none of the 5 are worth the risk once you're already home. If this list saves you a bad purchase or points you towards something genuinely useful, it's done its job, and passing it along to a parent, grandparent, or anyone who could use it costs nothing but a share. New shipments roll through regularly, so check back again in a few weeks, since this exact list will likely look at least a little different by the time the next batch of arrivals hits the shelf.